This would have had a pocket in his shorts for him. It's a bit disrespectful.
Oh, no, I don't agree with that at all. But he's contradicting himself. He's saying he's not a great player, but then Jason said, oh, you'd be in my best team ever, and Richard Keys came back, oh yeah, be in my team, my greatest team. So he's not a great player, but he'd be in his greatest team. I don't agree with this kind of immediately zoning in on his creativity. He wasn't the most creative player. Well, no, not in some respects. No, he wasn't. But Paolo Maldini for me was a great player. You know, he wasn't the most creative. He's defending Franco Baresi. These are great players, so we can sometimes get a little bit fixated on the kind of creative. Oh, he wasn't a Glenn Hoddle. No, he wasn't a Glenn Hoddle. No. But Glenn Hoddle couldn't track a runner, couldn't tackle, couldn't see a runner. You know what I mean? Couldn't manage a game out of possession of football like Roy could. Couldn't see the pictures as clearly when he hadn't got the ball as Glenn Hoddle could when he was in possession of the football. So there's a lot of different traits. And Roy could do a lot of everything for me. Roy's early career, box to box, getting ahead of the ball, scoring goals, disciplined himself to play a different role at Manchester United. It's interesting. The amount of time I played with Roy, I don't think I never remember making a pass with the outside of his right foot.
Yeah.
I mean, always received the ball. We're talking about Valencia playing in tight areas of the pitch. Well, Roy would play 5-10 yards outside his penalty box in a tight area. No problem. Give me the ball, half turn, head up, knowing where the next pass was. Always play forward. I remember I was the opposite, sideways and backwards. And I remember constantly Roy, play forward. And he was right, because too often I took the easy option.
Well, Rio Ferdinand tells a similar story about arriving at United and in his first training session getting the same word back, playing the ball, effing forward. You're at United now, not Leeds, was the line. It's interesting that Keys has overlooked Roy's passing ability to such an extent. Like Wayne Rooney was asked in the Sunday Times, I distinctly remember it was a couple of years ago, who's the best passer you played with? And like 9 times out of 10, if you were to guess what Rooney would say, you would have thought, well, maybe Scholes and possibly Beckham, you know, for a certain type of pass. Yeah. And straight away he said, Roy Keane. Roy always passed it forward into my feet and quickly. And maybe that's just an underappreciated thing by those of us looking on sometimes. Yeah,
I'll be honest with you. I'd probably say Scholes in terms of range of passing. I'd lean for Scholes just in terms of range of passing. But you're right, Roy in terms of weight of pass and that forward pass all the time, always right side. You know, never put the attacker in danger if his defender coming across and smashing him. The ball, always kind of safe side if you understand where the pass was played. Roy was a brilliant passer, ball, technically far better than. So I say some people didn't give him credit. There's not too many. It's a pretty minority group of people who don't give Roy credit in terms of the quality of pass for the football that he was.
To be not a sentence I'll say very often, but to be fair to Richard Keys, as it went on there, I think
he top, great, not great, top.
I know, nonsense. He realised he was digging himself out. At one point he was like, lads, please, you know what I mean?
No, Richard, what do you mean?
He was begging Andy to save him. And Gray at another point in that conversation said Roy always passed forward as well, like he mentioned that as one of the things. You know, you raise an interesting point. Roy would never pass with the outside of his foot very often. He never did anything showy for the sake of it. I can see he would never have manipulated the ball, touches and stops and you know, keeping a player off the way certain players would. I could see how Keys looking on would say, well, he just takes a touch and passes it with the inside of his foot every time. And what's so impressive about that? I can see that's what Keys is almost looking at. And what's so great about that is what Keys
it is great if you're taking players out of the game with those kind of 10, 15, 20-yard forward passes. Yeah. That's the point. You know, where do you pass the ball? If you're passing sideways or backwards, yeah, fair enough. But if you're actually playing between the lines and you're taking opposition midfielders out of the game, you're taking centre halves out of the game, you're sliding balls down the sides into centre halves, they're actually splitting centre halves with the football as well. Well, then that is by definition a brilliant passer of the ball. You're taking opposition players out of the game and creating opportunities for your teammates. And the defensive side is all action. How often nowadays, Joe, do we bracket midfielder? He's a holding midfielder. He's defence. I do it myself. He's defence-minded midfield. He's more of a creative. He's a number 8. You know, he's a number 6. You know, how often do we speak about an actual old-school, modern box-to-box player who really could do anything? He could sit in there and defend. He could screen the two centre halves, track runners, make good decisions, and then get on the ball and be productive in possession of the ball. Not only that, actually get ahead of the ball and influence the game by arriving late inside the box and score his fair share of goals and create goals. And Roy did all that in different phases of his career.
He wouldn't have had some of the technical ability of Stephen Gerrard in terms of getting the ball down and driving the ball into the top corner routinely from 35 yards. Probably wouldn't quite have had that. Still scored a few from outside the box, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But you know, and this is the stuff that Keys is honing in on. Some of the, the highlights reel. The highlights reel is what Richard Keys is talking about. The highlights reel is not as good or as flashy as a Steven Gerrard reel. But then someone like John Giles would be on and would say, like, Roy Keane could control a game in a way that Steven Gerrard couldn't dream of controlling a game.
Yeah, and I heard John, so I put a lot of stock in terms of what John says, particularly when he's talking about kind of footballers and breaking down their individual qualities. And I heard him speak about, right, because I think John was asked of all the players he's played with and seen, who he'd pick to play alongside him. Right. In a midfield too, and John would have played and obviously played against and in his own team, and at the time that he played some wonderful midfield players, and he leaned towards Roy, and obviously Liam would have been in there and many others, but he spoke about it at some length, but eventually he pipped for Roy. Yeah. And he made a great observation about Roy. Yeah. He said Roy always struck me, he was at his best in the first half of the game, even the first half an hour. He said when it struck me the game was in the balance. Yeah. When it really mattered, there was a real tension, a real edge to the game.
The other team had the energy to press.
Yeah, no, but he just felt as if the game mattered then. The game was there to be won. Yeah. And that's when Roy would at his very best, played at his peak. That's when he was almost interested. He loved it. Yeah. You know, the eye of the battle and the eye of the storm and all that type of thing. When he got ahead 1-2-0, suddenly his influence lessened. It was as if, well, game's over and I'm not really interested. Keep it simple. Yeah. Manage myself through the game. And I understood what he said. I thought it was a very perceptive thing that he said. Yeah. But the points he made about Roy in terms of his qualities, presence, personality, and the individual, the technical qualities that we're talking about, you know, for someone like John to make that statement about Roy is puts it in perspective.
Yeah, that shuts the case. Yeah. And certainly Keys there at the end saying Souness would have him in his back pocket. I mean, that's kind of like blatantly disrespectful. The one thing actually that surprised me, none of what Richard Keys said.
They're desperate to get Souness out there, obviously, and make a few appearances.
Listen, pleading with him. The one thing which surprised me was, frankly, nothing Richard Keys said. It was that Jason McAteer said that in training, until he played with them in a match in central midfield, in training, he thought Roy was bang average. Like, Brian Kerr is on record as talking about how the difference in Ireland training when Roy was there and wasn't there, that he was absolutely brilliant in training, would up the tempo by a couple of percent. Was he unimpressive in training for you?
I don't remember that one way or the other, to be honest with you. I don't remember Roy being absolutely ferocious, going around the place, lunging himself into tackles and stuff. Did he kind of walk into sessions? No, maybe he managed himself, particularly he got a bit older. Just kind of managed his energy a little bit. And of course, he found the game so easy at times, Roy, in terms of for what we were talking about. So, no, I wouldn't go one way or the other there. But I think in terms of, it's interesting, Roy being on the training pitch, there was always up the level a little bit from the other players, even subconsciously. Joe, I'd say having Roy there, not kind of, it's an interesting, you never really speak about it, but almost trying to impress. Sure. On a certain level, knowing how good he was, how influential he was, and just trying to say, you know, Roy, I can do it. Even if it was like, yeah, good. Didn't get too many compliments off Roy during the game or in training, but when they came and they were few and far between, yeah, good pass, good tackle, you know, begrudging. Yeah. Joe, it meant a lot. 10 foot tall.
I'm sure.
And that's the shame, really, I think, what Roy, I'm not sure he ever realised how much those kind of words meant to players, how much of a pick-me-up that was to hear the compliment or just get a wink or an acknowledgement off Roy on occasions that, yeah, well done. Well done. That meant a huge amount to everybody.
They say one Roy Keane well done is worth 55 Kevin Kilban well done.
I don't know if that is that harsh or that. What does that say? What are you trying to say exactly?
I don't know. Kevin Kilban's a nice man, I suppose. Let's put it that way.